So some of you may not know this, but I recently played Devil May Cry 1 for the first time with my friend, the Mythology Guy. We had a lot of fun with it, and we really enjoyed the character of Dante. However, while the series had a strong cult following, neither of us knew about it until the reboot came out. And honestly, as people who've never played the original series, we liked the reboot. We also never thought to play the original games for some reason. So because we only played the reboot and never played the originals until we were in our 30s, this puts us in a unique position where we grew up around the time the original series came out, but didn't experience it until we were much older and more analytical about games, characters, and story. So when someone asked us on stream if we would do a review of the game, we decided, let's play it and see what all the fuss is about. So let's jump right into the cult classic from 2001.
Let's rock, baby.
Devil May Cry. Gameplay. Since this is a video game, we're gonna kick things off with probably the most important aspect, the gameplay. And Devil May Cry 1 wears its origins on stylish leather sleeves. Originally developed as a prototype for Resident Evil 4, the project pivoted hard when the devs realized the fast-paced, combo-heavy combat didn't fit the horror game they planned for. That pivot gave us Dante, the Devil Trigger system, and the foundation for an entirely new genre. You can still feel its Resident Evil DNA all over the place. Fixed camera angles, creepy gothic environments, swarms of monsters zoning in on you like shambling undead, and a heavy dose of key hunting and backtracking. It's spooky, claustrophobic, and clunky, but also a lot of fun. But DMC didn't just borrow, it innovated. It helped define the stylish action genre and even influenced other titans like God of War. Killing enemies rewards red orbs, which you spend to upgrade weapons and buy items. A clear predecessor to Kratos' orb economy. And if you're a Zelda fan, like me, you'll appreciate the health upgrade system. In Zelda, it's heart pieces. In Devil May Cry, it's blue orb fragments. Collect 4 to boost your HP. Enemies can also drop green orbs for instant healing. Then there's Devil Trigger, a magic-adjacent mechanic where Dante hulks out into his demon form. You heal passively, hit harder, and unlock powerful new moves. It's fueled by a purple gauge, which you extend by collecting purple orbs. Unlike the blue ones, these come in full orb form only. No fragments allowed. There's also a pseudo lives system. Die, and if you have a gold orb, you instantly revive. It's clunky by today's standards, and pointless unless this was an arcade game, which it was not. But since game devs still thought they needed to be like arcades back in the day, they kept some of the clunky mechanics. Combat and weapons. Combat is all about the hack and slash, with a splash of style. You start with the sword and dual pistols, but over time, you unlock several other weapons. First, there's Alistor, a lightning sword with speed, mobility boosts, and an introduction you could only find in anime or Devil May Cry. Next, there's Ifrit, 2 fiery gauntlets for slower, heavier hits that test your very skill as a warrior. Then there's all the guns you get. A shotgun, of course, grenade launcher, awesome, and a laser gun. Yes, I said there's a laser gun in this game. There's also a harpoon gun for the dreaded underwater segments. We'll talk about that aquatic trauma later. Combat combos in this game are pretty basic by modern standards, even for Devil May Cry. You won't be juggling enemies midair like in the modern DMC games, and most of the time you're just smashing the main attack button. That said, it's still satisfying to carve through all the mobs, even if the AI leaves something to be desired. Devil May Cry also introduces the now iconic style ranking system, where your combat gets graded with flashy labels. It starts at dull, then it goes to cool, then bravo, absolute, and stylish. That's right, your swordplay gets a report card. But unlike future games, this system is mostly mission-based. You're ranked from D to S at the end of each level. This ranking is based on various factors. How much time you burned, how much damage you received, how many red orbs you collected, and how many secret missions you completed, for bonus points. It also ranks you on what items you use, like healing items or cheat items like the holy water. If you use them though, you lose points instead of gaining them. It's not super transparent in-game, but if you check a guide, it's actually pretty simple under the hood. Speaking of cheat items, Devil May Cry features consumables called stars. There are vital stars, which are green and heal you. There are devil stars, which are purple and restore your devil trigger. There are untouchables, which make you invincible and give infinite devil trigger for a short time. Almost makes me think of Dante as like a demon-killing Mario. I mean, they do both wear red and jump a lot. Oh, also there's holy water, which nukes every demon nearby, including bosses. except one. Mainly, you can buy these items from golden statues of the God of Time. Yes, an actual in-universe entity selling you war items. Apparently, demon blood orbs are legal tender in the afterlife. You can also spend red orbs here to unlock new abilities. Just to list a few, there's Stinger, a lunging sword strike. There's also Air Hike, a double jump, which is only usable while you have Alistar equipped. One of my personal favorites, Air Raid, which lets you fly around firing lightning, and it turns some bosses into light shows. Unfortunately, this is only usable while you're in Devil Trigger, so it's very costly and very powerful. And there are plenty others you can look up online if you want. Most abilities are weapon specific, which adds some depth, but also means you're swapping weapons to access skills rather than combat combos or playstyles. You also can't swap weapons on the fly. You need to go into the pause menu, go to weapons, pick your new weapon, then equip it. Normally this wouldn't bother me, but in a game that's supposed to have quick, fast-paced, high-energy action, pausing to swap weapons just slows the game down to a crawl, and it takes me a bit out of the experience. Not only does the early jank of combat slow the game down, but so does its prototype platforming mixed with horror camera angles and tank controls. Let's be real, the game is clunky. The camera angles fight you, the backtracking can drag, and the underwater sections feel like Rejected Echo the Dolphin levels. The difficulty curve is weird too. Phantom, the first boss, is insanely tanky for a tutorial fight. Speaking of the bosses, they all look really great, but each one highlights deeper flaws at the core of the game. Since this section is gonna eat up a lot of time already, let's explain each boss's pros and cons as quickly as possible. First we have Phantom. Cool lava spider scorpion, but he's tanky and slow. Need I remind you, this is the first boss, and yet, like I said, he plays like a Souls-like boss before Soulsborne existed. Griffon, creepy giant bird monster with red lightning, but his whole fight he spends 90% of the time in the air in a game with no aerial combat. Nelo Angelo, legit good. He's a cool design, great at aura farming, feels like a proper swordsman duel, and has some cool lore stuff I'll bring up later in the video. Awesome boss, I really liked him from beginning to end. Nightmare, looks like a blobby xenomorph and creeps me the heck out. Unfortunately, his fight is unpredictable, unfair, and unfun. I legitimately hated this boss so much, I made a clip of me and Andrew being so happy when we were done fighting it. Here you go.
Just finish this off. Yes!
Oh, thank God.
Just wait, it came back. Hit it again. Hit it again. I don't care what the reasoning is, just kill it. Just kill it. Oh, thank God, the nightmare is over. You piece of shit. I hate you so much. Very appropriately named achievement.
Yeah,
holy fuck. Holy fuck, that was annoying.
Mundus, the big boss of the game. Feels like a Kingdom Hearts boss. The fight starts with the space shooter section and ends in a lava pit. Confusing at first, but fun once it clicks. And yeah, you fight almost every boss 3 times. It's clearly a result of limited dev time and chaotic production style. This makes all the bosses memorable, but in the worst way possible. See, instead of them being this epic boss fight where you remember being able to finally solve it, or it has this cool lore behind it, or a cool action scene, or it's just fun to play, they're all memorable because you have to fight them multiple times. So each first fight feels like it wasn't worth the effort. And by the 3rd time you fight them, they're either a completely different gameplay, which is more annoying, or it's the same one, and it's still annoying. This unfortunately, like I said, makes the bosses memorable, but in the worst way possible. Except for Nelo Angelo, we'll get to him later. However, despite all the jank, Devil May Cry is still fun. It's a weird Frankenstein of genres, Resident Evil Bones, Zelda-inspired growth, and anime-fueled demon slay. It feels awkward by modern standards, but also bold and full of personality. That being said, the way you play a game is only the start when mapping out your thoughts. And what's the main thing you use a map for? Exploration. Devil May Cry isn't a series known for its secret nooks and crannies. That said, they do exist, but in my opinion, most are hidden too well. Let's start with the basics. Throughout the game, you'll find blue orb fragments, vital stars, devil stars, untouchables, holy water, destructible statues with large amounts of red orbs, and of course, plenty of key items. The optional stuff is usually tucked away in corners, behind gates, or up to hard to reach ledges. Getting to them often means scouring every inch of the level, like when you lose your phone and start flipping furniture, only to find it was in your pocket the whole time. Other times, you'll need a specific ability or item, like the double jump or the Ifrit gauntlets. And sometimes the game just gaslights you with optical illusions, making you think there's a path or a window when it's really just a wall texture. Combine all that with fixed cameras, and you'll need some serious gamer instincts to find everything. Because the game is set in a level-based castle on an island, exploration takes a backseat to progression. Still, there are fun secrets. Sometimes there are doors that look like regular doors that lead to regular rooms, but in actuality, they are doors to secret missions. These doors are scattered throughout the castle and take some pro gamer exploration to find them all, each one holding a special reward for completing them. There are 12 in total. Most reward you with blue orb fragments, while others offer red orbs or consumable items. The missions themselves vary. Some are tough platforming challenges, others are timed races or combat gauntlets. Many come with specific gameplay limits, like requiring a certain weapon, or disabling your healing, or removing your devil trigger. Personally, I found most of them annoying. Why? Because platforming in this game just isn't good. And explaining why isn't hard. First, it's got that early 2000s jank, 3D action platformers were still figuring things out, and movement didn't feel great yet. Then you add in the fixed Resident Evil style horror cameras, and things get 10 times worse. That's because this game was originally a Resident Evil title. So, the sets and camera placements were designed for horror, not action. The result? A cinematic vibe that constantly obscures enemies, items, or paths. Instead of building tension, it just becomes frustrating. And then there's the actual platforming. Sure, it tries to feel fast-paced and fluid like the combat, but in practice, it's a disaster. Simplistic controls plus bad camera depth perception means even basic jumps feel like Olympic events. You'll miss the same jump repeatedly, wasting 5 to 10 minutes each time, until you question whether this castle is secretly purgatory. Now let's talk about those key items I mentioned. They're found in, you guessed it, key locations needed to progress. But the logic behind them is bizarre. You'll find a door that needs an orb. The orb is in a statue's mouth. To get it, you need a specific sword. The sword is located on an upper level, but due to the camera angles, you can't see or reach that sword directly. The only way to access it is by using an elevator from the bottom floor, but that elevator won't activate until you press a hidden button in the basement. It's a weird chain of events that somehow works, but still feels totally disconnected. Speaking of the castle, the layout makes sense internally, until you step outside. Then suddenly there's a jungle, a coliseum, and a pirate ship? Which means what? You guessed it, water level. Now this isn't your average boomer trauma-inducing water level. It's worse. It's first person, with a fisheye lens, with clunky aiming, and you can't even attack the enemies until you get the right weapon halfway through the only water level in the entire game. You fight for maybe 5 minutes in the water, and then it's over, never to be seen again. Why is it here? So you can fight a bird boss again on what I can only describe as Elmo's cursed pirate cruise. But speaking of how things look, let's move on to graphics and music. This game came out in 2001, and it looks like it. But to me, that's not a bad thing. I've always loved the visuals and art direction of older games. For instance, I actually prefer the look of N64's Ocarina of Time over the DS remake. That said, the models in Devil May Cry can look a bit simple, even janky at times, and that's more technical limitation than bad design. By the way, if you're someone who refuses to play a game because it looks too old, then you have the mental palate of a 7-year-old who won't eat broccoli because it's yucky. That doesn't mean you have to like old graphics, but dismissing a game solely for not looking modern is like refusing to watch animated films because they're for kids. Now that my Pegasus has landed safely on the ground, let's talk about the art direction. The game does a fantastic job capturing the feel of a creepy, demon-infested castle. Cramped rooms, moving scenery, gothic architecture, it all builds this eerie, isolated vibe. Makes perfect sense when you remember it started as a Resident Evil project. In fact, the most out-of-place thing visually is Dante himself. He's rocking a bright red coat and stark white hair in a world of muted browns, greens, and purples. If that doesn't stand out to you, you've probably been watching too much anime. That contrast is no accident, by the way. It's deliberate, and smart. See, there are many ways to convey a feeling other than just action and dialogue. Colors also have a secret language to them that we all know, but rarely take the time to read. To explain this, let's look at Dante's design and coloring, starting with his red coat. Dante's bright red coat doesn't just pop visually, it tells you something. He doesn't belong in this world. While everything else is slow, shadowy, and brooding, Dante is fast, loud, and stylish. See, red is the color of danger, defiance, passion, and action. It signals that Dante is the outlier, the bright light in the middle of the gothic gloom. And that white hair, it's a classic visual cue for purity and inner strength. Dante may be a half-demon, but he's a protector at heart. He's driven by loss, passion, and desire to stop evil, no matter the cost. Even if he occasionally says things in the most hilariously awkward way possible. So while everything else blends into the haunted house backdrop, Dante stands tall like a defiant beacon of edgy early 2000s cool. Visually and symbolically, he's a great lead. And while Dante may be great for the story, a story is made of scenes. And what do you use to lead a scene? The music. If colors lead your mind, music is what leads your soul. And Devil May Cry's soundtrack hits with a mix of style and tension. The game's music is built on two main identities: atmospheric orchestral ambiance and adrenaline-pumping arcane rock. You've got eerie violins and unsettling echoes one moment, then blazing guitars and high-tempo battle themes the next. Think Final Fantasy meets Sonic Adventure 2, but make it demon-slaying gothcore. This blend does wonders for the vibe. The ambient track sells the creepy curse vibe of the castle. The high-energy combat theme kicks in right when the action starts, fueling your inner demon hunter. It's not quite earworm material like Zelda or Mega Man, but it absolutely nails the mood it's going for. It also knows when to dial it back. There are moments where the music fades into tense silence, which adds weight to specific areas or encounters. Then once you start swinging that sword, the soundtrack slaps you in the face with pure energy. That contrast keeps the pacing fresh and your adrenaline high. So no, it won't become your new workout playlist, but it absolutely enhances the action and tone of the game. Speaking of action, why do these characters take the actions that they do? Because of the world and story. Let's get this out of the way. Devil May Cry doesn't really have a world, at least not one you can explore. And no, that's not a bad thing. What I mean is this: the entire game takes place in one castle on a deserted island, plus a couple of cutscenes in Dante's shop. There are no towns to visit, no cultures to learn about, no nations to interact with. The world building in the traditional sense just isn't there. What it does have is lore, and it's actually pretty cool. 2,000 years ago, the demon world was at war with humanity. Then Sparda, the second strongest demon, because of course the strongest is the villain, betrayed his own kind and sealed the demon world away and protected the human realm. Later, he hooked up with a human woman, had 2 sons, and then died. One of those sons is Dante, our half-demon, red coat-wearing, sass-spewing main character. Nowadays, Dante runs a business taking odd jobs from anyone with a demonic problem. That's the setup. No massive timeline, no encyclopedia of magic systems, just a sprinkle of lore that sets the mood and gives Dante a reason to be stylishly violent. It's not building a Game of Thrones world, and it doesn't need to. What it lacks in expansive lore, it makes up for with atmosphere. The castle feels eerie and cursed, like something out of a gothic horror novel. You don't know who built it or why it's there, but the vibe is immaculate. It's cold, isolated, and dangerous. Perfect for a demon-slaying power fantasy. That tone paired with the lore drop at the start is enough to carry you through the game and its story. Speaking of the story, we should do a quick story recap. The game's story is pretty simple after all, which is totally fine. Not every plot needs to be a deep philosophical journey through the meaning of life. Sometimes it just needs to be fun, understandable, and get you from one demon-slaying boss fight to the next. We start with Dante chilling in his demon hunting office when a mysterious blonde named Trish shows up. She asks if he's the son of Sparda, and instead of waiting for an answer, she electrocutes him, stabs him with the sword, and throws a motorcycle at his face. Naturally, Dante just brushes it all off with Samuel L. Jackson levels of swagger. Impressed, Trish explains that Mundus, the big bad evil guy, and the demon overlord Sparda sealed away, is trying to return. She needs Dante's help to stop him. Dante, being the stylish action protagonist he is, agrees. They head off to the ominous Mallet Island. As they leave, we get a glimpse of a photo of Dante's mother, who looks suspiciously like Trish. Once on the island, demon bosses begin crawling out of every crack in the floorboards. Dante slays his way through them with relative ease, except for one. a silent knight in dark armor who actually beats Dante in their first encounter. And just as he's about to finish Dante off, a necklace falls from Dante's neck. The sight of it causes the knight to hesitate, as if triggering some sort of repressed memory. Then the knight decides to peace out, and we move on. Dante keeps fighting his way through the castle, and eventually faces off against a giant demon bird named Griffon, who, confusingly, is not a griffin. After being defeated, Griffon pleads with Mundus for more power. Mundus, showing off his glowing red eyes and classic villain energy, destroys him for failing, then laughs in the very generic evil villain laugh.
Maniacal laugh. Maniacal laugh. Maniacal laugh. Maniacal laugh.
Dante is disgusted by how Mundus treats his followers and recalls that a demon killed his mother and brother years ago. He now believes that demon was Mundus. Reinvigorated with revenge, Dante pushes deeper into the castle. He faces the mysterious knight again, who now reveals himself to be human, sort of, and serving Mundus. After defeating him, the knight drops a matching amulet to Dante's. Dante then suddenly realizes this is his brother Vergil, corrupted by Mundus. Then comes the twist. Trish, who brought Dante here in the first place, is working for Mundus. The player learns this through a cutscene, but Dante doesn't quite know yet. That's gonna bite him later. Now that Dante has both halves of the amulet, it takes its true form, giving Dante his true power. The power of their father, Sparda. Now with his true power and his father's blade combined, he unlocks its full potential, transforming it into the blade with the power to defeat Mundus. The blade Sparda. Yes, much like Vegeta, his father and his blade share a name. Dante's path to Mundus isn't smooth. He's forced to fight one of the most irritating bosses in the game, Nightmare. A big sludge monster with a terrible attitude and even worse hitbox. You fight him more than once, and in the third and final encounter, Trish joins the battle. Against you! That's when the betrayal hits. Literally. Trish, who you thought was on your side, turns on you and assists Nightmare once his health drops low enough. Even with the ambush attack, Dante still survives and wins, and after the fight, Dante spares Trish. Why? Because she looked like his mother, of course. Anime logic, don't question it. Soon after, Dante reaches Mundus' throne room, but just as Mundus is about to kill him, Trish sacrifices herself to save Dante, finally realizing she's been used. The Demon Lord tries to do the whole "join me and we will rule the world together" thing. This enrages Dante, who launches into one of those classic anime-style sky battles. Mundus takes some heavy damage from Dante, but ends up slapping Dante out of the sky, causing him to crash back down to Earth, continuing the fight down below. After a final phase on the ground, Dante defeats him, once and for all. Or so we think. Dante mourns over Trish's body, giving a genuinely emotional performance, followed immediately by one of the cringiest line reads in video game history.
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light!
He leaves his sword and amulet with her body as a final goodbye, but of course the island starts collapsing, because video game law says every final boss defeat triggers a self-destruct sequence. Dante races through the crumbling castle, only for the floor to collapse under him. Trapped in the basement, Mundus rips open a portal to drag Dante into the demon realm for good. But Trish returns, somehow alive, and shares her power with Dante for one final attack, saying his signature line,
Jackpot!
He blasts Mundus back into his dimension, sealing him away once again. Trish cries and Dante says,
Devils never cry.
Darn, we almost had a roll credits. Then, in what might be the most absurd escape in gaming history, a plane, yes a plane, falls from the ceiling down to the basement where Trish and Dante are trapped. They then hop in the somehow functional plane, shoot their way through the basement, and fly off into the sunset like it's Fast and the Furious of demon hunting. As the sun rises, Trish sees daylight for the first time, and Dante gives us the classic line, "The sky is fair." They rename the business Devil Never Cry, and roll credits on the wildest, most stylish action game of the early 2000s. And with Dante and Trish riding off into the sunset, it's time to talk about the characters. Here's where things get tricky, because Devil May Cry doesn't actually have a huge cast of characters. Most of the characters in this game are bosses who don't speak, don't develop, and exist mostly to scream something like, "I need more power," before dying dramatically. Let's break it down. Most of the bosses don't have personalities, they're just walking walls with health bars and one-liners. They show up, say, "Dante is strong," or "Daddy Mundus, help me," and then explode. That's not a character, that's a talking obstacle. Now, some people might argue that Nelo Angelo, aka Dante's brother Vergil, is a real character. But here's the thing. In this game, he's not. He doesn't speak, he doesn't have goals, motivations, or a character arc. He's just a cool armored knight with a glowing sword and tragic backstory retroactively added in later games. If DMC1 were a standalone title, Nelo Angelo would just be the mid-game twist boss, not a fleshed out person. So then who is a character? Well, the first one I'd say is a character is Mundus, the big bad evil guy himself. And yeah, he's one note, but he still counts. He has goals: take over the human world and destroy Dante. He takes action, sending minions and killing his own allies, and he has dialogue that reveals his personality. He's a classic end-of-the-world villain and the driving force behind the entire plot. That's a character. Well, it's not much. He is a character, plain and simple. The second character is Trish. She's the femme fatale, the mysterious stranger who sets everything in motion, and also the one who betrays Dante and eventually redeems herself. Is she well developed? Not really. She was clearly created to be the eye candy first, plot device second, and character third. But she does have a basic arc, deceives Dante, changes sides, sacrifices herself. She's like homemade fries. Edible, maybe even enjoyable, but definitely undercooked. Finally, we come to the main event. Dante himself. Dante is the game's best and most defined character, and thankfully, he's the one we spend the most time with. He's got clear motivations: avenge his family, stop Mundus. He takes tons of actions. You are literally him after all, and he oozes personality. He's cocky, cheesy, and effortlessly cool in that early 2000s anime protagonist way. He's basically Sonic with a gun. And yes, I realize Shadow is that, but we didn't get that game for another few years. Does he grow or change? Not really. Dante starts the game as a demon hunting badass and ends the game as a demon hunting badass. There's no arc, no big lesson learned, and that's fine. He's not here to be deep, he's here to be awesome. And he nails it. He mourns, gets angry, throws out poetic one-liners like "the sky is fair" and "devils never cry," and then rides off a plane out of the collapsing island. Iconic. Ironically, Trish is the only one with a real arc, but that doesn't take anything away from Dante. He doesn't need to change. He's already the blueprint for every stylish action protagonist that came after it. So while this game doesn't really have that many characters, and the ones that it does don't really have the full blueprint of what makes a character, it's still fun, and I still liked most of them for what they were. Either fun obstacles, neat lore twists, a big bad evil guy, a character with an arc, or the awesome Dante. They were all fun. Unfortunately, now that we've gone through the characters, time to just get to the end of this video. Devil May Cry is one of the weirdest, most over-the-top, high-octane, poetic, and gloriously cringe-fueled early 2000 action games I have ever played. And I love it! Is the story deep? Not really. Does it revolutionize how we think about video games? No, not at all. Are the characters complex? Definitely not. But is it fun? Absolutely. The game is stylish, fast-paced, and loaded with energy. The lore is cool without being overwhelming, the action is just the right amount of chaotic, and the vibe, immaculate. Sure, the camera fights you, the platforming sucks, the water level exists out of pure spite, and some of the bosses feel like rejected Power Ranger villains, but none of that outweighs the fact that this game oozes charm and momentum from beginning to end. If you played games like Sonic Adventure 2 growing up, this will feel like coming home. And if you didn't, it might feel dated, but give it a shot. There's a reason this game spawned a franchise, inspired a genre, and made redcoats cool again. Devil May Cry may not be perfect, but it's unforgettable. And as Dante himself says, devils never cry. So while this game did need a lot of work, it was also the first game in the series, and I think they did a great job. I had a lot of fun from beginning to end. I loved the main character of Dante. I really enjoyed the lore, and it made me really excited for the next one. So again, check it out if this review made you want to. I highly recommend it. It was fun. It is a little janky at times, but if you like Sonic Adventure 2 and Ocarina of Time and older games that have a little bit of jank to them, but a lot of character and fun, this is right up your alley. And so, I guess I have to say this game was a jackpot. Hey, thanks for watching until the end. It really is one of the best ways to support what I do here. Getting this video out was a journey. And just like this video, life's a journey. Sometimes it's a jackpot, sometimes it's a straight up devil trigger. But remember, things take time. If they were easy, everyone would get a triple S. If you want to help me get a triple S, you've got two stylish choices. One on the left is what YouTube thinks you'll love, and on the right you can binge all of our Devil May Cry streams from the very beginning. Whatever you do, don't believe in yourself. Believe in me, who believes in you. See you later, hunters.